Hello, YouTube and Wooper Club fans. I am IllLogic. I'm the coach of the Buffalo Bouffalant, and fresh off of a fun double season in the Wooper Club League, I wanted to highlight some of the best, most creative sets of the season. That's right, as I'm hopeful you have eyes to read the title of the video you clicked on, we're going to be going over my heat of the season. We're talking the most heat sets, the most fire combination of mons, moves, items, or whatever else that our coach has brought into battle this season that you know are unexpected or simply just the best call the coach could have made despite not being the obvious choice. We've got a lot of amazing sets to go over, so let's dive right into it, starting with a few honorable mentions. The Covert Cloak item wasn't heat by the end of the season, but this was far from a default item in most coaches' minds at the beginning of the season. It's tough to pick the most impactful use of the Covert Cloak, but the first use of the season was a pretty nice spot to consider, as we see my Buffalo Bouffalant use it effectively here to immune a fake out from Sneasler and take it out on turn 1. Great item, one of many we hope to see get more consideration in future seasons too. Next up, IllLogic didn't exactly do anything one wouldn't expect it to do, but come on, man, it's freaking IllLogic. The Cincinnati Zero utilized the IllLogic quite effectively all season, en route to a number 3 seed. Not only that, but the Hungry Hypnos stomped their way through the playoffs using some key encores, infestations, and tailwinds to propel them to a beginner's league title. Again, not much you wouldn't expect from an IllLogic necessarily, but who expected IllLogic to do this? And here's one of my favorite plays of the season. The Kanto Kinglers are definitely known for their cooking in the kitchen, and they did not disappoint. Pin Missile from Jolteon is quite weak, but into its partner Armarouge, it can proc weak armor 3 times to max out that speed stat. This play didn't make the list because of the lack of results from the play, but this is the kind of ingenuity we're going to be looking for. Maybe with a stored power and or a Terra Psychic and weakness policy to go along with it, and we'd have been putting this maybe even atop the list. Think about it. But with that, it's going to be time to get into the most fire sets we saw in Wooper Club League Season 14. Buckle in for the heat of the season. At number 15, we've got something more appealing than Foot Lettuce. Duckfather is in a good position already at the moment, up big and with 2 more turns of Tailwind to go, but that Whimsicott is low and Jirachi does not appear to have a great matchup into these two. Or does it? How about Terra Rock, Terra Blast to instantly clear Charizard, a powerful hit, and to add insult to injury on the final turn. It's going to reveal that that's not the only rock move it has up its sleeve. It's also got the Meteor Beam too. I really love the idea of multiple rock moves on this mon in particular to help out against the Sun in this matchup, including one that can raise the special attack and one that doesn't need to be rock until needed or as a secondary rock type move after the Meteor Beam is already down. Well thought out set by the Psyducks and deservedly on the list. At number 14, here's a classic. It's basically the missing piece from that last honorable mention. Down 6-4. How about a priority Draining Kiss from Comfey, which can proc a weakness policy on the Boulder's own Raging Bolt, who didn't even invest in special attack to help maximize bulk and go to town. The Oko on Thunders at +2 was still possible even without the crit or any investment at all. Yeah, the Boulders did benefit from a low roll and a full para to help the Comfey Raging Bolt complete the 6-mon sweep, but I have to applaud Sasbo for pulling off the weakness policy next to a Pollen Puff healer, mind you, and executing it perfectly. Just makes sense. Number 13, we're back to a match we've already watched, but this time we're looking at the Summit County Psyducks again. As we saw before, the early game was the IllLogic and Typhlosion show, so what hope does Duckfather have in the mid-game with Trick Room up and Psychic Terrain ready to boost Expanding Force to ridiculous levels? Whimsicott doesn't like either. Or does it? How about Misty Terrain with the boosted priority of Prankster to remove the Psychic Terrain as well as proc the Misty Seed to give it a Spadef boost that lets Whimsicott tank the now single target unboosted Life Orb Hatterene from the Incineroar, allowing Earthworm to KO the Hatterene back with the slower heavy slam. Wonderfully executed again by the Psyducks. Shame that this one was in a losing effort though. Oh hey, that's me, the Buffalo Bouffalant, on the list at number 12 for this Gothitelle set, which admittedly doesn't seem all that fire at first, but let's take a bit of a look. Goth made its debut the previous week, helping Rotom Wash grab 5 KOs by trapping the opponents and supporting with Heal Pulse and Hypnosis. So in week 5 against the Noctowls, what happened? Obviously this was a nice start with Goth trapping the leads, allowing Chi-Yu to grab 2 Okos with a Specs Heatwave, but after that, we're going to see Psychic do half to Ogerpon, which is definitely more than expected. A couple turns later, it tanks a Dazzling Gleam and Steam Eruption for Volcanion into KO Volcanion with Thunderbolt, and then tanks a U-turn as well from Ogerpon to do over half to Iron Hands. Yeah, this was a modest Assault Vest Gothitelle. Sure looks like it caught the Noctowls off guard with its bulk and power, and baiting a taunt into him on, which obviously will not have any non-attacking moves with the Assault Vest preventing that anyways, and that helped the Bouffalant to a big boy win against another top contending team. At number 11, boy, we cannot keep the Psyducks off the list, can we? We're heading over to the Summit County Psyducks in their match against my Buffalo Bouffalant, that Gothitelle match we just referenced. You may notice I brought the Gyarados this week. Makes sense as a check to Chien-Pao, Azumarill, and that Okidogi. Well, imagine ever reading what something like Guard Dog does, considering that on this free double switch, instead, that's going to give Okidogi a +1 in attack, and the Psyducks capitalized on that even further with the Adrenaline Orb to give it a speed boost as well. And if that weren't enough, it only makes sense for Okidogi to be able to take on the threat it already helps counter and pack Thunder Punch as well for the instant OHKO. This set worked to perfection. Great job from Duckfather to recognize the Gyarados threat in team building and execute the plan perfectly on the blind double from both sides, even if the Psyducks once again did come up short in this match. Getting into the top 10, it's the Terrifier Heatwave on the other side there in their debut season in an early matchup against the powerful Route 1 Burbs. We're joining the battle on turn 5. It's been a pretty even matchup so far. Shiftry just got fully paralyzed by a Thunderbolt, so Thundurus still lives, and Amoonguss has freshly switched in. How about that mixed bulk? Max HP, relaxed, 170 defense, and 80 speed def helps Amoonguss live on 1%, maximizing the bulk on those rolls, waiting for Shiftry to OKO the Thundy, and then get the damage off an Ogerpon. And if that weren't enough, let's get that Regenerator health back immediately with the fresh Eject Pack. Yeah, Leaf Storm maximizes the damage and gets the Shroom out of there after tanking the hits, and this was the perfect situation I could imagine for this set. Well done by the Heatwave. That helped them keep up enough momentum here as they took a strong 5-0 win. Next up is our number 9 slot, and it's pretty simple. On Team Preview, our Incineroar do not want to get stifled by that neutralizing gas, which can suppress Prankster, Magic Bounce, and especially Psychic Surge. And as the game starts, there is Indeedee, and sure enough, we see on the other side that there is going to be neutralizing gas wheezing. But the ability shield! Psychic Terrain doesn't look like it did much, but the expanding force plays from both sides were only available because of the decision to put on the ability shield. Very fun tech item that deserves praise in this niche case, that actually what came up and was very relevant. Our number 8 slot goes back to this game. The Kanto Kinglers had a neat idea with the Jolteon, but couldn't finish the thought. But how about later in the game when paired with Electivire? How about the double discharge, which is way too funny to leave too low on the list. Both mons getting an advantage from the electric moves from each other, as well as doing damage to the opposition, which it could have done more or meant more in the match overall, but this is just too funny that I ended up pulling this off with a choice specs Electivire, by the way. No paras, too. Boo! Moving on to number 7 here, it's time the Psyducks face the heat themselves. This one from the number 1 seeded Calgary Corviknights on their Sun team, but it's not the Sun we're going to be looking at. Early game, Slitherwing put in the work breaking through Duckfather's team, but some great maneuvering gave the Psyducks the early lead. And we're going to pick things up from here. Oh great, we're just going to flinch the Toxapex. That's great, and Sacred Fire does so much in the Sun and burns Duraludon. It's your own fault for naming it that. Iron Defense, though, that's interesting. Another Sacred Fire brings it into the burn range as well, which is not a good sign, but Rest. Oh, hold up, what is he cooking? Later on, Entei goes down, and then what's the game plan to take down Duraludon from that point? We're going to add in Body Press as well from a +2 defense stat? Okay, but it can't win the game on its own, can it? Pex helps, and as whenever it gets down low again, it can just rest up again. Eventually, whenever this goes down, Chien-Pao's looking like the only thing that can deal with Duraludon now. However, it does have in its back pocket Terra Fairy, and that makes it even more difficult. Along with the +2 defense, Duckfather just could not break through the Duraludon Toxapex combo, and the defensive stall Duraludon in doubles is the one that wins the game for the Corviknight. How about that? And our last entry before a bit of a break, number 6, will go back to my Buffalo Bouffalant in my Week 2 matchup against the Pikeville Pups. I had a few neat plans prepared in the back, coaching KLDO anyone, but the leads were all I needed apparently. The pups have a bulky team, and Chi-Yu is the one to break. No, it's not Chi-Yu that we're showing off. How about the support Shaman Sky? Chi-Yu only does so much, but in the sun, that's a couple mons in range of another heat wave. So what does Skyman do with the free turn? How about we set up a little bit with growth? Shout out to grass types boosting their own stats in a weather that makes them weaker. Chi-Yu did go down, but nothing stopped the Shaman Sky. The Sunny Day and growth combination down to the pups was with ease, and very importantly, was quite funny. I hope you've been having fun with the fire sets our coaches made work, but before we get into the top 5, I want to take a moment for a couple of fun things we should talk about. Not every set works out. Often we see them never even attempted. But sometimes something happens and we just cannot see the true genius behind the set. An unfortunate crit, missed timing, maybe it was doomed from the outset. In honor of the inevitable loss of heat, I would like to introduce you to the entropy list for the heat we've lost and never was. So how about my Bouffalant again? I was subject to the Adrenaline Orb Okie Dokie 2 weeks prior to this play, so how about doing that again to help Rotom Wash outspeed the Landorus and nail it with a Hydro Pump before it can U-turn out? No Landorus turn 1, so I can swap out and save that for late. Well, rip to the potential heat. Next entropy play, we're back to the match between the Heat Wave and the Burbs. After that Leaf Storm play, it will take some heat from the Burbs to get back into the match. Reuniclus is in and tanks a +1 knockoff to get off Trick Room. How will we take advantage of this? Well, there's something you should know. You see that King Gambit in the back? It's got a weakness policy, and the intended way to proc it was Fire Punch Reuniclus. Even though King Gambit isn't out, there's still a way for these Psychic types to actually KO Shiftry. Helping Hand can power up Fire Punch enough to take down the Grass type, so... I see. Well... Okay, 2 teams we haven't seen yet. The Wooper Boopers and the mighty Miltanks, with the Miltanks trying to make it into the playoffs with a W. It's about even right now, and Hitmonlee is looking to put in some work. I think Fake Out will definitely help quite a bit, but after that, it's just going to have to swap out. Well, I mean, no White Herb, no Normal Gem? What do you think the item is to help it proc its Unburdenability? Well, as Hitmonlee outspeeds Metagross a little bit later, even with Sticky Web down, it's a Choice Scarf. Yeah, it kind of worked a little bit, but Fake Out and Swords Dance were on this set. With a Scarf. Nice. Okay, third reference to this match. It's my Buffalo Bouffalant, and boy did I cook up something fire. Hariyama is strong, but what if it was stronger? What if we belly drummed up? What if we gave it a Terra Steel to help it set up along with Gothitel's Fake Out? What if we got a Guts boost? And maybe we set up a Trick Room 2 to give it the ability to Drain Punch and heal up. And it taunted Goth the second time. Okay, it did, and I already Terra Steeled. But at the very least, before I go down, I can do damage to Whimsicott. Protect, and, well, down it goes, doing absolutely nothing. Rip to the heat. That never was. What about a finals game failure, though? My Bouffalant were more than prepared for all kinds of speed control. Tailwind, Icy Wind, random Scarfs, no problem. But Water and Grass Pledge? Not on my radar. That's the dedicated lead 2. Still needed to prepare for lead Rillaboom, so Air Slash and a Flinch. Water Pledge does still KO Iron Treads, but there goes the surprise. But if you felt bad about that, how about our winner for entropy of the season? The Noctiles got lucky early, actually, with a crit into Gastrodon, but after the double KO from the Wild Bolt Storm, it's time for a fresh double switch in Mew and Inteleon. No better time to pull off the strat than right now. Thunderwave the Inteleon, okay, Roaring Moon can follow up with a knockoff. Salackberry, interesting. Ice Beam freezes, nice, but Fling misses, yeah, that's a weakness policy on Mew, which does not have the +2/+2/+1. Awkward, that's okay, Alphals, you have a chance to redeem yourself. Grass Pledge, Mew. Yeah, that was also a Water and Grass Pledge attempt. The Inteleon was almost the best play of the season. Almost. And that's what entropy is all about. And finally, I lied. My favorite quote-unquote failed heat belongs to the hapless Seattle Steamrollers, who brought the most obvious item you can think of when you imagine a Bisharp set. Now, with King Gambit being released, you may have an idea of where we're going, but of course, with Eviolite being reserved for the Hitmontop, we have to make compromises, and in multiple different weeks. Chad made the executive very informed decision to bring Assault Fest Bisharp multiple different times. Yep, just gonna leave that there for now. And finally, before we get back to the top 5 heat of the season, I do have one more play I want to highlight. I've been very careful with how I define heat. Heat is an unusual or strange set designed for the matchup, particularly items or moves that are generally abnormal or do not come to mind easily or immediately. There were several well-executed plays, but they aren't necessarily heat if it's standard moves used correctly or cleverly, I suppose. That said, I would be remiss if I didn't at least mention this play that was incredibly clever and was a heat way of using a non-heat move or set, but also did not pan out, and this feels like the perfect opportunity to display that. The matchup is the Clobbers facing against the Corviknights, and Greg has just gotten up Trick Room thanks to him for going the double taunt up onto Klefki. Arcanine did KO Klefki last turn, but with Slitherwing out and both Torkoal and the Bug outspeeding and Trick Room, things do not look good. But can he at least get the KO on Slitherwing? A clever T-Wave into Arcanine means it should live Torkoal's attack and nail Slitherwing with the Flare Blitz to Oko in the sun. But T-Wave missed. There you have it. The only play I'd have classified as heat with nothing but standard moves, but alas, it ends up as an honorable mention here instead. Okay, enough stalling. Let's get into my 5 favorite heat sets of the season. How about we give the Newport Noctowl some love? Week 8, the Agrons need this win to avoid a play-in match, but the Noctowls need that better seed, of course, too. Turn 1, Cresselia swaps in, indeed shows off the expanding force, but Mew is going to click a very important button called Imprison, and in case you were curious, yes, Mew has Trick Room on there, not too unusual, and it also has expanding force. A perfect execution of Imprison here. Cresselia was forced to swap out without doing anything, and indeed he was left wide open for Ogerpon to grab the KO on it, as the Noctowls rolled from a strong turn 1 into a W. Number 4 on my list. You know, we've dunked on Steve enough on this list so far. Let's give him his flowers with his Manaphy set, which helped him take home one of the best matches of the season. Tons of hacks early in the game, but on turn 4, Manaphy gets to come in for free with the Shed Tail substitute. Take Heart as Trick Room goes up, then tank a crit Play Rough from Azu. Ugh. Second Take Heart does not help there. Skull does good damage into Farigiraf, but now what? Azu does have to focus on Rillaboom to stop it from being KO'd, then protect from a Fake Out on the turn after. So what does Manaphy do? Acid Armor's up! In one of the most unorthodox Double Dance sets, we've got a +2, +2, +2 Manaphy in a very different way than you would expect from a statement like that. Terra Fairy lets it survive Sacred Sword, survive Play Rough, survive Extreme Speed, and Heal Pulse brings it healthy again. How does this thing even go down? It would need to be a crit, but Duckfather won't be getting it. The bold, max HP, max defense, Double Dance Manaphy didn't even click Stored Power. With Latios' health, won the day for the Wobbuffets, expertly crafted and executed. And at number 3, speaking of, we've been picking on the Route 1 Burbs a little too much. Week 1 was chock full of fire plays, but my second favorite play from the opening week was this one from our good buddy, Other Michael of the Route 1 Burbs. Remember the Pin Missile Jolteon with Weak Armor Armarouge? How do you feel about one step better than that? We go beat up Weavile into Endure Terrakion. And to make it even worse for the Clobbers, Weavile goes down turn 1, meaning Ogerpon can come in and click a Follow Me to tank the next hit, which lets Terrakion go off. Very good maneuvering with spread moves, and Wild Bolt Storm and Earthquake did bring down Terrakion, but I think it was a little too late by then. The justified boosted Terrakion did enough to bring the Burbs a very solid Week 1 win. At number 2, it's our buddy Sazbo, and his Boulder is looking to take advantage of a generally passive Pups team. Zapdos is going to be the setup choice here. Makes sense, but how? It's actually going to be something a little unorthodox. Obviously, it's on the heat of the season. Serena clicks Swagger turn 1 into the Glotzera's. Mirror Herb copies the stat up. That means Zapdos has a better flying move to spam as well, and Acrobatics. You may notice 0 flying resists on the other side. Zapdos helped take down half of the Pups team by the time it went down, putting in the work with the self-procced Mirror Herb setup. Very nice. However, as has been foreshadowed all video, there was only one play I would accept at number 1. It was over from week 1. Calgary Corviknights are facing the Close Combat Club in the inaugural week of the season, and the item Adrenaline Orb has had its fingerprints all over this list. That Landorus sure makes sense in the matchup too with a Sun team on the other side, but what if turn 0 Intimidate goes off? And if that happens, then potentially we could see Competitive go off too with the Adrenaline Orb, and potentially also then turn 1 we can go Terra Fairy, Hurricane. Goodbye, Hydreigon. It was all down here for the club. Galarian Articuno dominated this game from the onset, literally a turn 0 win for the Corviknights, even surviving a high horsepower on turn 6 on 1, giving credence to this maybe the most valuable Pokemon in a single match all season, even when paired with the unusual Adrenaline Orb to give Greg my Heat of the Season. That'll do it from here, our inaugural Heat of the Season video. What did you think? What should have been higher? What should have been lower? Were we too mean to our coaches highlighting their failed heat? Or did you think it was as funny as I did? As I said, this is my first attempt at doing something like this. Please let me know if you'd like to see more, if you'd like to see it done differently, and how. And stay tuned for more Wooper Club League content in the near future. We'll see you there.